gracias por invitation to hablar aquí. Lo siento, mi español, bueno, prefiero hablar hablo inglés. I'm from 49 Consulting. We're a consulting and engineering company, global company, headquartered in Finland, and we've done a lot of work in the Baltic region already, in the Nordic region, regarding small-scale LNG and bunkering. So thanks for the invitation to come and speak. So what have we learned already? We know that the sulfur emissions for ships are being reduced so that the HFO cannot be used, at least in the eco-regions. LNG is competitive with other fuels, so marine diesel fuel, marine diesel oil, and HFO with scrubbers. LNG. LNG is well established in the marine fuel market, particularly in the Nordic area, and there are a large number of ships being on order and will operate worldwide going forward. And we know that the European Commission is keen to develop an LNG bunkering network, 139 ports across Europe through the 10T programme. What else do we know? Well, LNG has an excellent safety record. There's only been one fatal incident in the last 35 years, and until recently this has only been on the large-scale terminals. So it's only the last 10 years or so that we've actually been using LNG on a small scale in bunkering. So regulations have been put in place for development of LNG, transfer of LNG at a large plant, and they don't always transfer. The regulations don't transfer naturally to the marine market. So there's lots of things that need to be done. So the question is, what is being done to develop the regulations and the standards to make it work for marine transport? Well, in summary, there are a number of regulations being developed. You need to look at it in two aspects. One, actually using it on the ship, so as a fuel, and then secondly, the bunkering operations. So we're going to look at the two. In terms of bunkering, we have ship-to-ship bunkering. We have shore-to-ship or truck-to-ship, or from a tank to a ship. And we have a portable tank that can be put onto the ship when it's full and taken off when it's empty, similar to what you might use with a gas bottle for your barbecue or something like that. Interim guidelines have already been developed by the Norwegians. They've been doing this for 10 years already, and were adopted by the IMO in 2009 as interim guidelines. So LNG is well established as a fuel for ships, and the guidelines form the basis of the future international standards and guidelines that are currently under development. It was already mentioned the IGF code. This is being developed by the IMO. This is for the safety of ships using gases or other low flashpoint fuels. Previous to this, gas wasn't really allowed to be a fuel on ships. Its flashpoint was too low. So the existing regulation, which is the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, that regulation only allows fuel above with a flashpoint above 60 degrees C. So these are the implications, the changes that need to come through. This particular code is to provide the requirements for a safe operation of the gas-fueled vessels. It includes requirements for the bunkering systems on the receiving vessel and the general operational requirements on board, both before, during and after the bunkering process. But it doesn't include the specific operational guidelines of how you actually take on fuel and all the transfer systems that are included. So that's where we need to look at the bunkering. Now, as I said, this has been going on for quite a long time already. The top picture shows a ferry in Sweden being loaded with LNG from a ship, from a bunkering ship. You can just about see a small white ship next to the red ferry. The interesting thing here is that there are passengers embarking and disembarking at the time. So there are lots of rules to be put in place as to can the bunkering process can be carried out when there is loading and unloading, when the passengers embarking and disembarking, and we're seeing it's already being done in Sweden. I'm not sure you can tell, but in the top right corner there is some residential property. So again, it's happening quite close to where people are living, and it's being done safely. The second picture is bunkering from a truck in Norway. So again, this is happening on a regular basis. And the third picture is a LNG tank, which can be put onto a ship and using a normal crane. So that's another way of bunkering. Now, as I say, this has been going on for years already, and like any industry, it has to have its own safety aspects, considerations. So they have risk mitigation systems to reduce the hazards. So loss of the fuel itself, fire, explosions, any operator error. The ideas are there to try and minimise and protect the local community and the environment. There are a lot of regulations already in place in relation to the transfer of LNG as a cargo, and that's being run safely. It's being done here in Reynosa. So it's happening all over the world. There's an ISO regulation that gives instructions on how to operate the ships in the port. The draft IGF code that was mentioned earlier. There's a transfer guide for LNG, so moving the liquid from one vessel to another, and a number of other things which are already in place that people are using to give themselves guidelines to do it all safely. A few years ago, ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, they came through and set up a working group to develop international guidelines. So at the moment we've got sort of local guidelines, but we want to be able to apply it throughout the world. It's going to happen in America, it's going to happen in the Far East, in Singapore, and across the whole world. So the rules need to be standardized so that ships can travel across from one place to another. And this includes the requirements for design and operation of the bunkering facility, procedures for connection and disconnection, emergency shutdown, etc. It does have a few limitations. For example, it has been developed as a guideline, not as a standard. So people have to refer to that in their own standards. They will operate according to the ISO guideline. So it's not quite as strong as a standard. There's nothing in there that says what the gas quality should be. So the LNG quality can be different from different sources, and you need to make sure that your engines can run on all the different types. It also doesn't cover the connection and disconnection of the portable tanks. So in addition to these, there are port arrangements. The common guidelines that are not standardized worldwide. So in order to authorize or to certificate the bunkering facilities, those are being developed by countries, by port authorities. So that's not standard, it needs working upon. And so there's still a little bit of work to be done. So this is a conclusion. A lot of a lot of work has already been done in standardizing and pulling together guidelines for the whole world to operate on. There's still a way to go to get every aspect covered, and for them to be established as standards rather than as guidelines. The LNG community is very proud of the safety aspects, safety record, and they want to maintain this for public support, so that they encourage more use of LNG as a fuel, not just in the marine sector but in the road sector as well. And so even without these guidelines, it is operating to very high standards and would like to maintain those. So that's a quick summary of that.